Ayo, what is up, everybody? My name is Chandler Molyneux, and welcome into the Act First show where we help coaches get better at sales. Oh, baby, we got a good one for you guys today. If you guys are on your sales calls and you feel like from your prospects there's no willingness to buy your program, like there's no juice, there's no excitement to buy your program, or if you're getting an abundance of some form of a money objection, I can't afford this is too much money, I got to check my budget. The reason that is because you're not creating enough pain on your sales call. And in this YouTube video, in this podcast, we're going to talk about how can you actually create more pain on your sales call so there is a willingness, an excitement, juice behind joining your program and also eliminating the money objection as well. All right, so first, we need to define what exactly is pain. No, I'm not saying that you need to reach through your Zoom call and strangle them or punch them in the face and create physical pain. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about internal emotional pain. Now, I'm not saying that you need to beat them down and bully them and create emotional pain either. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you need to be a leader and guide them to the destination that they know they need to go to, but for whatever reason have not been able to on their own. But let's go ahead and define pain a little bit further. Now, there's a term called the gap, and you're going to hear me talk about this a lot. And this is what the gap is. I'm going to make it very simple. They are right here. They are at point A, right? And point A is they're unhappy with something. You know, there's challenges that they're facing. It's affecting their life negatively. And they want to be over here. They want to be at point B, right? And point B, this is often referred to, I didn't come up with this term, but it's often referred to as Hell Island and Heaven Island. All right, so Hell Island would be where they're at currently, and Heaven Island is where they want to go. This is the end destination, right? This is them living out their dream life. And the space in between Heaven and Hell Island is the gap. Now, if that gap is really short, meaning they can throw a stone from Hell Island to Heaven Island and it can reach the other island, right? That's a short gap. That means there's not a lot of pain, right? That means they could probably resolve this issue on their own. But if we widen that gap and they need to literally get on a cruise ship to get from Hell Island to Heaven Island, there is a lot of pain. And there's also a lot of, how the hell do I do this? There's a lot of confusion. There's a need for a mentor. There's a need for a guide. And that's where we can insert your program and get them to say, okay, joining XYZ program is my fastest and easiest solution to get from Hell Island to Heaven Island. And what you're going to learn in today's podcast is how not only to create and widen the gap, but how to be that solution as well, or at least how to set yourself up to have the most highest opportunity to become that solution. All right, so when I say pain, I'm talking about the gap. How wide is that gap? Can we throw a stone from one island to the next, or do we need to get on a plane or a cruise ship to get from one island to the next? The wider the gap, the more pain. The more pain, the more need for a solution, and you, my friend, are going to be that solution. Now, the next thing when we're defining pain is there's internal pressure and external pressure. We don't want external pressure, right? That's the bad rap that a lot of salespeople get, is they provide too much external pressure. We want to provide internal pressure. Here's what external pressure is. External pressure is us putting our beliefs onto them. You need to change because of XYZ reason. Internal pressure is us being a leader, asking the right questions to get them internally to say, I need to make a change. So that's the difference between internal pressure and external pressure. External pressure is us telling them, hey, you should do this, you should make this change, us putting our beliefs onto them. Internal pressure is us asking the right questions to create internal pressure for them to make a change where it's their decision, not our decision, okay? So when we're defining pain, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, now before we get into the specifics, I'm going to lay out exactly step by step how we can widen the gap on our calls. But the next thing I wanted to talk about here is the actual your job on the sales call. Okay. A lot of people have it wrong. A lot of people think that they need to be, hours and hours of objection handling and studying how to handle objections. And don't get me wrong, you should be an expert on how to handle objections. That is very important. But that's not your job on the sales call. Your job on the sales call is two-part. One, it's to figure out if and how we can help the prospect. First and foremost, first and foremost, can we help them? And if we can, how can we help them? And once we've identified if we can or cannot help them, the next role on the sales call for you is to eliminate objections. Those are the only two roles that you need to play on a sales call. All right. If and how we can help them, eliminate objections. That's where we should be spending a lot of our time studying and learning. Like videos like this, like the exact one that you're watching right now, teaching you how to eliminate objections. This is where we should be spending our time studying. Sure, yes, be an expert in objection handling. We need that for the people that we fall through the cracks or let fall through the cracks and we don't eliminate all the objections, but really we should be a master at eliminating objections. Okay, so we've talked about what is pain. We talked about the role that you play on a sales call. The next thing we're going to talk about is the 6 human needs. Okay, so this is a concept created by Tony Robbins that applies to sales. And the absence of and the reason, let me backtrack. The reason it's important for you to understand this is the absence of any one of these human needs creates a level of pain. All right, so we have to understand, where does this pain come from before we create more of it, before we widen that gap? Because it's your role on a sales call to be a detective to identify which one of these human needs is missing, and then we can press on that button to widen the gap to create more pain on a sales call. But like I said, first we need to understand, where does it come from? And the absence of any one of these 6 human needs creates pain. All right, so the first human need we have is certainty. The need to feel certain, right? So for example, if I lost my job, there would be a level of uncertainty that would create pain. If I went through a breakup, that would be uncertainty. It would create pain. If I needed to lose 50 pounds, but I didn't know how, there would be uncertainty. There would be pain, right? So certainty is one of our human needs. We want to feel certain. All right, number 2 is variety, the need for variety, right? If I worked a desk job and I was an accountant and I did the same thing every single day, there would be no variety, and that would create pain. It would be stagnant. It would be boring. All right, number 3 is significance. Humans need to feel significant, right? If we don't feel significant, we don't feel worthy, right? That creates a level of pain. Maybe I'm stuck in the same job for 10 years. I didn't get any, promotion or raise, while my peers are getting promotion and raises. I feel insignificant in comparison to them. That's an example, right? The next one here is the need for growth, right? The human desire to grow, to expand, right? The void of growth, maybe using that same example that I just did, or I'll use a different example. Let's say I'm in a marriage, right? And my marriage isn't growing. We're kind of stuck in the same spot. We're having the same conversations. We're having the same date nights. We're having the same level of sex. Nothing is growing. Nothing is getting better. It's stale, right? That is going to create pain, growth. All right, the next one is contribution, the human need to feel like we are contributing. Maybe you're a man of the household or a woman of the household, you're the provider of the household, and you lost your job. Now you feel like you're not contributing to your family. That creates pain. The last one here is love and connection. Maybe, you got really knee deep in your work. You're creating a business. You kind of threw friendship out the window. Next thing you know, you look up 5 years later, you have no friends. You're like, man, I feel like I need connection. I need love. The void of that creates pain. So these are the 6 human needs. The void of these creates pain, like we've talked about. Certainty, variety, significance, growth, contribution, love, and connection. Now, the 2 biggest ones, the ones that you are going to see most frequently and most prevalently in the coaching space, is going to be the need for certainty and the need for significance. Those are the 2 biggest. All right, so recapping, up until this point, we've defined pain. We've talked about your role on the sales call, and we talked about the 6 human needs. So we're at the point that you've been waiting for. How do we actually create pain on this sales call? All right, well, it's your job. So if we're going to create pain on the sales call, it's your job as the salesperson to paint a clear picture. More specifically, we're painting a clear picture of their current versus desired surface level state and emotional state. All right, I wrote down an example here. Okay, so there's 2 things that we're looking at here. We have the surface level situation and the surface level destination, and then we have the emotional situation and the emotional destination, right? So there's something on the surface, and this will make more sense when I go through the example. There's something that's surface level, and then there's something deeper that's emotional. We talked about this a lot in literally my last video where we talked about, finding the why of the why, right? We talked about unpacking the layers of the onion and getting deeper and deeper. This is more or less that. Okay, so you need to create a clear picture. Okay, you're creating a clear picture of the surface level situation. All right, so let's say that you're a marriage coach, right? You help somebody with their marriages. Okay, so the surface level situation could be, and let's say it's the male. Let's say you're coaching the male, not both male and female. You're just coaching the husband in this scenario. Okay, so let's say the surface level situation is they're on the brink of divorce. Okay, that's the surface level situation. Okay, the surface level destination is they want to fix the marriage. So that's what's happening on the surface. Brink of divorce is the situation. Destination is they want to fix the marriage, right? Surface level. Okay, but underneath the surface level, we have the emotional situation. And the emotional situation is comprised of the human needs, right? The 6 human needs that we just talked about, right? So this male who's at the brink of divorce, there's a lot of uncertainty on if the marriage is going to work or not. There's a lack of significance because he feels like he's not doing his job as a man. There's a lack of growth because the marriage isn't growing. There's a lack of love and connection for obvious reasons if they're almost divorced. And there's a lack of contribution. The male feels like they want to contribute, right, to the marriage, right? And there's a lack of contribution if it's on the brink of divorce. Okay, so that's the emotional situation. Then we have the emotional destination. This is what this male wants, right? This male wants certainty. He wants the marriage to be fixed. He wants to be certain that the marriage is going to last. He wants significance. He wants to feel that the marriage is growing, is expanding, is creating significance in his life. When other people look at their marriage, he wants people to say, wow, that is aspirational. I want to be like that couple, right? Lack of growth, right? But the emotional destination would be that there is growth, that the marriage is growing, expanding. They're helping each other grow and expand in their own individual lives, right? The emotional destination of love and connection. He wants to feel that the marriage provides love and connection. And contribution, right? The emotional destination here, he wants to feel like he's contributing to the growth of the marriage. All right, so hopefully this helps you create a mental model, right? That when we're on a sales call, we as the salespeople need to create a clear picture of the surface level situation and the surface level destination. And also we need to create a clear picture of the current emotional situation and the future emotional destination. All right, so we've been talking a lot in theory up until this point. All right, so now we're actually going to get strategic. How do we actually unearth this? How do we actually paint that clear picture to the prospect? Because here's the thing, some prospects come into the call and they know this already. They know on the surface level, they want this. They know emotionally, they want to feel this. And those are very easy sales. But majority of the calls that we get on do not fall under that category. Majority of the calls that we get on have no idea. They may know the surface level, what they want to accomplish, but emotionally they really don't. And we won't be able to sell somebody unless they feel the emotional pain and we widen that gap. Okay, so how do we unearth this? We unearth this in the discovery section. Okay, so in the discovery section is where all this is going to happen. It's not going to happen in the presentation. It's not going to happen in the pitch. It's going to happen in the first 20 minutes of the call in the discovery section. All right, we're going to be creating the gap. That's the goal. How can we widen the gap between Hell Island, what they're experiencing now, and Heaven Island, what they want to experience in the future? All right, so let's start by defining the surface level situation. This is the easiest. Like, this is very logical, it's not emotional, and it should be numerical, right? So in your discovery section, when you ask them what their goal is, be specific, right? I know this is overplayed, and I know this isn't new information to you, but use SMART goals. Like, actually use it. Make the goal specific. Make it measurable. Make it attainable. Make it realistic. Make it time-bound. Okay, so specific and measurable. If you don't do any of the others, specific and measurable, okay? Specifically, I want to lose 30 pounds in the next 6 months. Okay, so I guess time-bound as well, right? So at bare minimum, you should be doing specific, measurable, and time-bound. But if we're going to know where they're at currently and where they want to be, we have to do that surface level, specific, measurable, time-bound. All right. I currently, my marriage is on the brink of divorce. In the next year, I want to have a very sound marriage. Right? I want us to, go on X amount of vacations, have a family, right? Something that's specific and measurable. Okay, you didn't click on this video to learn that. That's easy stuff. The harder stuff is the emotional situation to the emotional destination, okay? So we first need to uncover their emotional situation, and then we need to paint the picture of what is their emotional destination. All right, so here's where we do that, okay? So I have a list of areas in the discovery call on in the discovery section if you're doing a 1-call close, the discovery call if you're doing a 2-call close. But these are the specific sections in which you're going to uncover this. So in the very first question, the why of the why, which you should go back, not the last video, but 2 videos from this one, I go in depth on how to break down the why of the why. But I'm just going to recap really quick the specific questions that you need to be asking in the why section. All right, so all of this that we're talking about here, like unearthing the emotional situation, this is all about questions. It's not really about statements because, like I said, internal versus external pressure. External pressure is you telling them what to do. Internal pressure is you leading them by asking them questions so they get to the point where they say, I need to make a change. Okay, so it's all questions, not statements. So write these down, okay? So this is for the why section, right? So we want to say, what would having blank do that you can't do now? What would having an amazing marriage do for your life that you aren't experiencing currently? Example. What would losing 30 pounds do that you can't already do right now? Example, right? And then we want to say, what else? Tell me more. What else? What else? What else? Tell me more, tell me more, tell me more. Until they say, yeah, I think that's about it. Right? Here are some other questions you can ask in the why section. What led you to the decision of wanting to fix your marriage, of wanting to lose 30 pounds, right? This is going to tell you the story leading up to that point, right? I was experiencing this, I was feeling this, right? They're gonna dive a little bit deeper. They're gonna peel back the layers of the onion. The last question that I like to ask is, why is now the time? Why is now the time you want to lose these 30 pounds? Why is now the time that you want to fix your marriage? Okay, so these are the questions that I ask in the why section to draw out their current emotional situation, right? So to bring to life what they're currently feeling. All right, in the goal section of the discovery, I like to ask the 1 to 10 question. So once I know what their goal is, specific, measurable, time-bound, then I'm going to ask them on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you don't care at all, 10 being you have to make this change. You have to make this goal a reality. How important is this goal for you? And then they answer. Right? Now, with the answer, I'm not going to go, I'm not trying to like break down this question, but if they tell me it's less than an 8, then it's probably unlikely that they are going to be a good fit. And at that point, I'll end the call. But if they're an 8, 9, or 10, that's important. And I want to say, why is it so important? And I want to continue to peel back layers of the onion to unearth their current emotional situation. All right, now notice we haven't talked about emotional destination yet. We've only talked about emotional situation. All these questions will bring up the emotional situation. We will do the emotional destination in just a second. All right, so that's the goal section. In the challenge section, there are 3 questions I like to ask. Question number 1, what was your breaking point, right? So it maybe they haven't hit their breaking point, right? If they have, or if you feel like they have, you would say, hey, I know you're going through a lot of challenges. What was your breaking point, right? And usually there's a lot of emotions attached to that. Once again, it will unearth that emotional situation. If they haven't hit their breaking point yet, you can ask them, what would be your breaking point? All right, so that's a powerful question there to ask in the challenge section. Now, another question we can ask in the challenge section when you get a list of their challenges is you can say, how long have you been experiencing these challenges? They'll give you a number, and then you'll say, wow, okay, so you've been experiencing these challenges for 3 years? Tell me more about that. How has that felt, right? And that's going to unearth a lot of their current emotional situation. Okay, now moving on to the tried section. The tried section, there's only 2 things they can tell you. They can tell you that they've tried things or they haven't tried things. If they have not tried things, we want to ask them, how long has this goal been a thought? Oh, I haven't tried anything yet. Okay, cool. Well, hey, I know you want to lose these 30 pounds. Tell me, how long has that goal been a thought? Well, Chad, it's been a thought for 3 years. Wow, it's been a thought for 3 years. Tell me more about that. Like, why haven't you taken action sooner? Well, I have this fear, uncertainty, right? I don't feel like I can accomplish it, right? Lack of significance, right? So now we're unearthing a lot of these current emotional situations, right? Now, the other one is they have tried things, right? And then we can dive into the frustration of it not working, right? So, oh, Chad, I tried keto, I tried calorie counting. Wow, you've tried a lot of things and really we haven't hit our goal yet. That must be really frustrating for you. Tell me more about that. Right? And we're unearthing their current emotional situation. All right. The last section of the discovery that's going to unearth the current emotional situation. I like to ask this question. This isn't typically on many people's discovery. I added this into my discovery. It's been a game changer. 12 months if you do, 12 months if you don't. So basically what I say is, okay, so let's project out 12 months from now. You're either going to be at the place that you want or you're not, right? So let's say that you decide not to take action on this goal. What does life look like 12 months from now if that's your decision? Paint the negative vision, right? Then I say, great. All right, let's flip it. Let's go positive. Let's say you do decide to take action. Let's say you accomplish this goal in the next 12 months. What is life going to look like then? What is life going to feel like then, right? So now we're talking surface level and emotional level. Now, this is the first time that we brought up emotional destination, right? Because all those other questions were bringing up emotional situation, what they're currently feeling. But in the 12 months, if you do, right, we talk about, hey, if you do accomplish this goal, what does life look like? What does life feel like? Now we're bringing up emotional destination. Okay, so we have all this information, right? We know exactly where they're at, surface level, where they want to be. We know where they're at emotionally, where they want to be. This is where I like to do a nice recap, right? So at the end of the discovery, we're going to do a recap. And what that recap is going to look like is we're going to say, all right, I just want to make sure I have all my notes correctly. Tell me if I did a good job here, if I missed anything. But it seems like at the surface, you want to lose these 30 pounds. And the reason you want to do that, well, actually, sorry, I wouldn't say that. I would just say it looks like currently you're 230 pounds. You want to be 200 pounds. You want to lose these 30 pounds. All right. That's where we're at on the surface. Now, emotionally, what we're experiencing is because we haven't lost these 30 pounds, there's a little bit of uncertainty, right? You're uncertain about your future health. You say you want to be there for your kids, right? So you want to provide that love and connection for your kids. You also want to contribute for your kids, right? You want to show them and lead by example of what it looks like to be a healthy male or a role model of health. And what you want is the opposite of that, right? You want to be the role model for your kids. You want to have certainty on the longevity of your health. You want to feel significant while you're contributing to your kids. Would you say that that's all fair? Right? So what I'm doing is I'm recapping the current situation and the future destination and the emotional states as well. The current emotional state and the future emotional state as well. Cool. Hopefully this has been helpful. All right. I like talking about this stuff. I know it's more philosophical. I'm trying to make it more action-based by providing you guys specific questions in order to do this. Now, you guys know my recommendation, role play, right? Watching videos like this is great to learn the new information, but then we have to put this information into practice, right? So I highly recommend you start role-playing your discovery section with somebody and really try to create the gap and then recap the gap back to that individual. All right, I wrote one last thing down here, and I just want to read it word for word. I don't want to miss anything because I feel like this really encapsulates what we're talking about here, right? Bringing it back to the beginning, what was the problem we're solving on this call? The problem we're solving is you're experiencing this. People are popping on your calls and they seem kind of disinterested. They seem like there's no willingness, there's no juice, there's no excitement to join your program. And a lot of times what this shows up as is I can't afford it, it's too much money, right? I need to check my budget, right? Usually this disinterest shows up as the money objection. All right, so I wrote this one last thing down. I want to share it with you guys. So overall, current and future pain of doing nothing needs to be far greater than the time, energy, and money of doing your program. If you are going to sell people, I'm going to say this one more time. If you are going to sell people, the current and future pain of doing nothing needs to be far greater than the time, energy, and money of joining your program. And whose responsibility is that? That's your responsibility. And where do we do that? In the discovery section. Why? Because it's your job to eliminate objections before they even happen.